On behalf of the University of Virginia's Center for Public Safety and Justice, thank you for joining us in this important conversation on the future of public safety. Today's public safety leaders are navigating an environment that is more complex, demanding, and scrutinized than ever before. Agencies across the country are confronting challenges involving workforce development, organizational culture, public trust, emerging technologies, crisis leadership, and rapidly evolving community expectations. At the same time, there is an urgent need to prepare the next generation of leaders who will guide the organization through these realities. That is exactly why we're proud to launch the Mid-Level Management Academy for Strategic Leadership, a premier collaborative developed with the National Organization of Black Law Enforcement Executives and 21 CP Solutions. This initiative is designed to invest in the leaders serving in the critical middle levels of public safety organizations, those that are supervisors, managers, and rising executives who often shape the culture, drive operations, mentor personnel, and influence organizations' success every day, both sworn and professional staff. Today's Fireside Chat brings together an exceptional group of leaders who spent their careers navigating many of the issues that the profession is facing. We are fortunate to be joined by President Renée Hall, Associate Professor Tracie, Keesee, Chief Rodney Bryant, Executive Director Dwayne Crawford, and Chief Ron Davis, individuals who bring tremendous insight, experience, and perspective in leadership, organizational effectiveness, and the future of public safety. Leaders, welcome. Thank you so much for being here. Our goal today is to discuss the challenges facing the profession and to explore how leadership development, innovation, mentorship, collaboration can help prepare the communities that these leaders serve for the future. Candidly, why folks should be part of this new initiative and why they should join. Thank you again for being here. Let's get started today. So I'm going to ask you each to introduce yourself and to share a little bit about your background. And I'm going to ask to move through fairly briefly on this, but if you can hit a little bit about some of the unique challenges that leaders are facing as you introduce yourselves. Chief, please.
Well, good afternoon and thank you for having us. My name is Rodney Bryant. I'm the past president of Noble and a retired chief of the City of Atlanta Police Department. I think that this program that we are embarking upon is so critical to this profession that I am proud to be a part of, and I think that us addressing the middle management will fill in the gap of misleadership as one ascends to the position of the chief of police.
Outstanding.
Thank you. My name is Renée Hall. Again, I'm honored to be here launching this partnership, this collaboration between University of Virginia and 21 CP, and of course Noble. As the president of Noble and former police chief in the city of Dallas, in my career, I've experienced that mid-level manager it's the glue between the vision of the organization and the application of the organization. And oftentimes, getting the buy-in, shaping culture, influencing the message and the messaging around community engagement, why operational needs are necessary, comes from that mid-level manager. And so it's important that they have the knowledge, the wisdom, the tools, all the resources to be able to carry that water and then shape the future of public safety.
Good afternoon, and once again, thank you for inviting me. My name is Ron Davis. I'm a partner at 21 CP Solutions. Before that, I have close to 40 years in law enforcement, 30 years at the local level with Oakland Police Department. Was a police chief in East Palo Alto. I had the opportunity to serve as director of the COPS Office and executive director of President Obama's Task Force on 21st Century Policing. And most recently, I retired as the director of the United States Marshals Service. And I went through that long list of things because those experiences have taught me that the one constant we have in our profession, if not our lives, is change. And we need to prepare a generation for that. I'm very impressed with the generation that we're focusing on, this mid-level managers, because they are the future. Well, actually, they're the current, but also the future of public safety and law enforcement. So to be able to educate them and prepare them based on experiences, based on best practices, based on the best learning, I think prepares the field. And if we've known nothing else over the last decade, change is here, change will come, And we need people that's prepared for that so that they become, as we always say, a learning organization. Any organization that is stagnant will not survive. I tell all the agencies that I left, if I look back and you're doing the same thing you did when I left, then unfortunately I failed you, which means we have to constantly evolve. And the only way to do that are have leaders at that mid-level, at every level, but especially the mid-level and executives that are prepared to be able to make the kind of changes necessary and to lead this profession forward. Thank you.
My name is Dwayne Crawford, Executive Director for National Organization of Black Law Enforcement Executives, Noble. We're right now celebrating our 50th year of existence this year. And over the last decade, we've tripled in membership. We've got nearly 5,000 members, but I think it also comes with a certain amount of responsibility of how do we prepare the current members to fill those positions as chiefs and sheriffs, et cetera. And a lot of that's going to be how we're able to develop our middle managers. So for me, it's going to be critical. When you triple in membership over a short period of time, that's good news, but the bad news is what? Will we providing to these new members and the current members? One, to stay involved, and no, more importantly, to better serve our profession. So this is going to be critical. And the last thing I'll say is, with the responsibility of 50 years, our founders probably never imagined having 5,000 members, but also having them be between middle managers and CEOs and rank and file. So I do think it's also an opportunity to pay the debt to our founders of making sure that we provide those tools necessary for these young people to have a successful career.
I love that, thank you. I am Dr. Tracie, Keesee, Associate Professor of the University of Virginia. And the one thing that is so incredible about this is the collaborations and the new things that you can create when you have partners like this, especially when we're talking about academics and how are we preparing folks. My background, of course, is in policing, 25 years with Denver PD and then on to NYPD as their Deputy Commissioner of Training and Equity Inclusion. I'm also the co-founder of the Center for Policing Equity, along with Philip Atiba-Goff. And I also have a UN appointment that helps me and allows me to go all over the world to talk about issues in law enforcement. And I think that we cannot forget that we go beyond just what we have here in the United States. I think it's important to know that when there are changes in policing, that you have people who are ready to help you navigate those changes. And when we talk about that, we have to talk about how we train our middle managers. And I have to think back when I was a middle manager, I was being asked to do things I wasn't prepared for. And it's really important that we make sure that not only do we have a good understanding of current issues, but how do we help people begin to navigate those things? And not just navigate them, we want them to be able to, what we say, we want them to teach up, and we also want them to prepare those that are beneath them getting ready to go, so our supervisors. We don't have anything that what I consider to be a streamless way to prepare for future leadership, and I think by identifying this gap of middle managers and addressing this gap puts us ahead. So I do appreciate that. So thank you. I look forward to the conversation.
President Hall, why is investing in mid-level managers so critical for their leadership development?
So I'm glad you asked me that question. Today's society and policing comes with complex issues, and we need operators in the space who can challenge the status quo and deal with those complex issues using collaboration, using new ideas, using partnerships. And the only way that they truly understand and know what that's like is to be able to be around like-minded individuals who are learning from technology, from innovation, and all the changes that are coming. This partnership with the University of Virginia and 21CP surrounds them with individuals who are leaders in the industry, who have done the work, who have been able to challenge some of the status quos, to be able to do the work, to advance it to where it is today, but we need to push forward. As Mr. Crawford introduced himself and talked about Noble celebrating 50 years, how old are these agencies? What is the culture in the agency? What is the police relationship between law enforcement and those communities? And how does it need to change? What does it need to look like for the future? When you invest in your mid-level managers, you have the middle of the organization who has the power to influence change, culture, to create transparency and accountability, getting the skills, the knowledge, the wisdom, and all the resources that they need in order to be innovative in the future and focus on what's coming next. So this is key for us Oftentimes we're focusing on that police chief, that executive, and what their vision is going to be. Imagine creating in the middle of the organization a group of individuals who are forward-thinking, who have a vision before the vision. And I think that's what this mid-level manager program does. It allows us to pour into those individuals who are the future of public safety. And we get a chance to create new minds, new hearts, and give our community access to a greater policing for the future.
That's outstanding. Chief Bryant, many organizations focus very heavily on their senior leaders and executive development, but often overlook this mid-level leader or mid-level manager. As you think about these roles and positions within organizations, why are they so important to the organizations themselves?
Absolutely. Much like what the president spoke about, the culture of the organization lives within the middle management. And to develop that, and when one is requiring change, you want to attack it at the source. And by the time, as you stated in your opening, that executives tend to be able to receive a lot of training, but their tenure tends to be short-lived. And so even though they're there to change culture, they generally establish it and then they move on, and agencies resort back to what they typically knew. But when you are now addressing this up-and-coming leaders who will tend to be there oftentimes longer than the chief, it allows that ability for culture to change and to be maintained. And much like you stated about the vision, driving that vision even further than what that chief that may have been there just for a short period of time, that it carries on beyond them, because you're touching the middle manager. And those middle managers are so significant to the community and that agency that they are serving. And that's where the benefit lies for the communities and the people that they are leading going forward.
Professor, coming to you. How do we prepare future leaders to navigate polarized environments while maintaining professionalism, legitimacy, and impacting trust positively within their community?
And that's a great question. And we start that by creating, again, a program that really will address and begin to help them think about how do you navigate those spaces. One way in which you have to begin to do that is to expand what you already know. We do know that when you have concepts like procedural justice, when we have the co-production of public safety, and when we talk about the history of our communities and how we've historically engaged, it then begins to allow folks to think about, are there other ways in which we should be doing this? The other thing the program will also address is that you have lived experience all around you, and you have chiefs, and you have retired chiefs, current chiefs, and former chiefs who have navigated some of the most crucial moments in policing history. So the ability to not only give you those concepts, but to bring in not just case studies, but real live people who've survived it is one of the things the ways in which we try to make sure we can help you. Because when you think about your lived experience as a middle manager, we can only live so much for you. You're going to have to experience that. But what we can do is prepare you for those things. And preparing you means, how do you learn about what has happened historically, and then how do you go eyes forward? How do you begin to think about, how do I do this differently? How do I remain aware? How do I center community? And more importantly, how do you center your own people inside that organization? Because oftentimes we forget that that's also a part of a community that we need to navigate. So I think that this program should do all of those things.
Building off what you said, Director Davis, coming to you, what are some of the biggest mistakes agencies make or leaders make when developing or failing to develop their next generation of leaders? So we talk about tragedies in law enforcement organizations all the time, but what do you see from your perspective, both on a local and national level?
Thank you for the question, and it's a great question. I think in many cases, agencies confuse and sometimes even conflate the concept of risk management versus crisis response, which means some of the mistakes we make is always waiting for the crisis to occur, then responding, and then trying to build a strategy in response to the crisis, versus one of the jobs of leadership is to take a look at and project future challenges and change and building a response to mitigate the risk. And so I think this is why a program like this is special and very much needed, is because you're teaching a generation to do exactly that. And the best way to project future challenges is to know what's going on today, but also know what happened yesterday, understand our history. And I think that's really critically important right now when there are efforts to reduce and to eliminate and to rescind and amend an actual history. Nelson Mandela said it best, only the truth can put the past to rest. You cannot address the historical issues that are facing many of our communities if you don't start by acknowledging the truth and then developing strategies of how we use that truth, how we engage that relationship, and how we do better. So I would say to the chiefs that are thinking about whether or not to send a middle manager to the course, of course, because this is how you start looking at how to project for the future. What's around the corner? So you tell my managers, I don't need to know what's in front of me, I got eyes. What I need to know is what's around the corner. And I need to prepare for that and to take a look at that. So I take a look at yesterday, look at today to project the challenges of tomorrow, and I prepare the agency for that. But you have to have like-minded managers or those that will drive the agency. Otherwise, people are constantly looking either in front of them or they're always looking behind them. And I think and both by itself are not bad, but if that's all you do, then it can be very negative. So I think this is one of those periods in law enforcement. It's a generational moment that comes around every so often, every generation, quite frankly, and I think we're there. Probably generations have said that, but I think for real, when you look at what's going on, the challenges from where we're at as a country, where we're at as a globally, where we're at as a profession. But with that challenge, I strongly believe we have probably the best opportunity we've had in 100 years, because we have the challenges, and I would say this to the young, and the young is relative to me, to the young professionals out there, this is the smartest, most analytical, most responsive, and most professional generation of cops and leaders that I've seen in my entire 40 years in the game. And so they have the ability to get it done.
Mr. Crawford, coming to you. The role of a public safety mid-level manager or executive have both changed tremendously over the past decade, from where it was to what it is now. What do you think it's going to look like a decade from now?
Well, that's what I hope it's going to look like. But I think, from my standpoint, this term of servant leadership, how we're able to convince leaders, current and the futures, that if you can lead in how you serve your fellow man, how you serve your agency, how you serve your community, it matters. Because at the end of the day, if you can get that community to help you out, maybe referrals, and maybe give you key intel, it's almost impossible for about 1 million officers to be able to do what? Police millions and millions and millions of our citizens. It's going to take those citizens, in my opinion, buying in to either what the agency is communicating, what that CEO, but also those middle managers. In my opinion, they can lead in how you serve and demonstrate that you took an oath to protect and serve everyone. Not ideology, not a religion, but we're going to serve and protect. And I'm going to get focused on the whole country. We're going to get focused on our agency. How can our agency serve and protect each of you and give you the respect you deserve, and also this thing called sanctity of life? We're going to make every effort to protect that. I do think if leaders put service first, the rest will come. The last thing I'll say is we know between technology, we know and training and all these other concepts, it still comes down to the will of a human being to make another human being's future, their opportunities, just as important as theirs. I mean by that is the quality of life should matter whether you're the chief, you're the sergeant, you're the lieutenant, or you're rank and file, but it's important. And I think the thing that's facing our country right now is a very basic thing of just respecting my right to exist and flourish and have what? A quality of life. So I'm hoping that we begin to understand that my success is actually dependent on your success, and vice versa. Your success is dependent on what? On my ability to do what? Protect and serve you and your families. But I'm optimistic. I've been in this role as executive director for over a dozen years now. I remember in the first couple of years, you would never hear a CEO in a use of force incident that maybe gone a little south actually give a message of empathy and condolence publicly. Now, maybe privately, and the fear was if I did that, I may compromise my case. I get that. Now, that's very common for a chief or a sheriff to say, look, I'm expressing my condolences whether I think it was justified or not because I respect your humanity. And so, in on that, we've got to respect each other's humanity. So for me, leadership is that, being the first in line to protect everyone's humanity.
Thank you. President Hall, we talk a lot about organizational culture in our variety of different programs. We talk about recruitment, retention, wellness, all topics critical to today's public safety executives. What role does that mid-level supervisor, maybe that lieutenant on evenings or the sergeant on midnights, play in shaping that organization's culture?
So I will say this, that is a wonderful question, and the culture rises and fails with that mid-level manager, that lieutenant, that sergeant, that captain. And that is because when we develop what we believe is culture, someone has to push that through the organization. We know that historically a culture was created. But if you have a vision and you want that culture to change, you, as the Bible says, you write the vision and you make it plain, but in order for it to come to fruition, it has to permeate down through that baseline officer. But there's a ladder there. That mid-level manager, that lieutenant is going to hold the individuals accountable so that if culture is to change, it changes because of the rules and the regulations that are being pushed currently that weren't in the past. Transparency. They are going to ensure that what happens on those shifts, what happens on those calls is communicated. Body-worn cameras are worn. The use of the technology that has been put in place, that all of these policies are going to be followed. That is what helps to change the culture of an organization. That is what helps to change the perception of the community. So if you do not have that mid-level manager, that sergeant, that lieutenant, depending upon what organization you're in, that captain, driving home all of the vision from the top of the organization, it is very difficult to change the culture within that organization. So I will say emphatically that without mid-level managers buying into the vision and making every effort to follow policy or to even implement new policy, watching the officers as they interact each and every day and saying something needs to change in order for us to be better, ensuring that they're pushing the message of building a stronger community. But also, when we talk about wellness, they are the individuals who see these officers day in and day out. That officer that gets a tremendous amount of citizen complaints. Why or why not? They are the ones that are going to be addressing those concerns and figuring out what the officers need and being able to get that information to the top of the organization. So they're critical. And since they are critical to the organization, then we have to be intentional about making sure that they have what it is that they need. And this program provides them with all the tools that they need in order to be successful and make sure that these organizations are successful. So I will tell chiefs all across the country, invest in your men and women in your organization, but in your mid-level managers, that is where you rise and where you fall.
You see organizations that are very successful at this have long trajectories where chiefs have invested in generations of future leaders, and you see organizations that don't have that. You spoke to that point really of the value of pouring into your people and seeing the dividends that it has long after any particular tenure. Professor, coming to you one more time here. Can you talk a little bit about how agencies should balance innovation with ethics, transparency, and community expectations? We're at a time right now where people have a lot of expectations in public safety, in particular in the police. How do agencies balance that, and how should mid-level leaders think about that in the future? I just asked you 4 questions in one.
Yeah, you did 4 questions in one, but I want to back up a little bit before I answer that question. And when we think about technology and we think about all the things that we purport, we hope it can do, I have to back up and say we have to be talking about not just uniformed personnel. We also have to be talking about our professional staff, our mid-level professional staffs and leaders, who also, I think, are a part of this conversation and this program as well. Because when you're thinking about things like technology, one of the things that you want to talk about is accountability. It does not excuse organizations or middle managers from holding people accountable, right? So that's not just your own people. It's also accountability around what does the technology do? What does it mean to be innovative? When you're thinking about those kinds of concepts and questions, you also have to continue to center community, because we will often hear technology companies that say, hey, we can do this for you and you don't have to hire anybody, and or you don't need so many people. And just because technology is available doesn't mean technology is the right solution. We also have to make sure our middle managers are understanding that there has to be a balance there. This is still, as far as I'm concerned, as a professor and retired law enforcement, this is still a people-person organization and a people-purpose, focus-driven interaction. There's a lot of conversations about technology being able to go to calls and things like that, which I think in some cases may be helpful, but it's not going to be the case for everything. And I think your ability to understand what's innovation, as opposed to what I would consider excusing not wanting to deal with an issue, as well as what does technology really bring to your organization. So it also requires that you have a good understanding of the direction leadership wants to go, and middle managers also have to be responsible for also speaking to leadership around what we think the implications of adding technology will be. So I think there's a need here for accountability on both sides. We love innovation, but innovation also may be restricted depending on what it is that you're trying to innovate on. We also don't try to reinvent the wheel, but you also have to learn how to do those things, and I think that's what this program is for. And to be in a room with your colleagues to have this difficult conversation, there is nothing more, I think, rewarding than to have someone in a room with you in a cohort that also is going through the same thing you're going through. So the ability to sort of what we call, phone a friend, literally is going to be sitting next to you. So I think all of those things have to be put into consideration when we're talking about not just innovation, technology, but the accountability and whether or not it is something in the community that will not just benefit the safety needs, but the needs of those who need the most, and including, as we always say, the officers as well.
Excellent. Chief Bryant, question for you. If you were talking to a newer mid-level manager, what's a piece of advice you'd get them on how to be successful?
One of the first things I think, talking to a mid-level manager, first I would tell them to continue to be educated. That it is vital that you continue to learn. I think someone used the term stagnant earlier, that if your agency is not learning and evolving to change, then you become stagnant, and eventually you're going to have some significant problems. Additionally, I think that it's so critical that a middle manager finds a mentor, because though this program will give you a level of academic and practical experiences that will be able to carry you far, there's nothing like having someone who that can provide you with a true lived experience and a level of intuition that leaders have to rely upon. So there are things that you can be taught academically, but a mentor can tell you about an experience right now, something that you need to address currently, that you cannot wait for the next cohort, or you can't wait till the next time a class meet. You can pick up that phone and have that conversation with that mentor right away, be it someone more senior to you or someone junior to you. But those are the two things that I think are critical, and they go hand in hand. Continue to learn and identify yourself with a mentor.
We talk often about a kitchen cabinet of mentors, right? Not just one single voice, but kind of like everything in the kitchen cabinet you turn to for different pieces of advice. Who's somebody in your cabinet that's given you advice, hopefully that's been good advice throughout your career?
I reach out to a number of people, I really do. I think, but the person that stands out the most is probably George Turner. He was my chief of police and promoted me up through my more senior level of management. I had the opportunity to just witness how he performed and go through some experiences with him as well, which helped me be prepared for experiences that I had to deal with. And myself and Renée were in the seat at the time when we had to deal with COVID. And then, so you have to rely upon the chiefs that are in that seat, because even chiefs that had gone before you had not experienced what was going on then. So your mentorship changes just a bit but they were still those that you could rely upon, and he was someone that I could call to help navigate waters that he had gone through and was beneficial to me.
President Hall, who's mentored you throughout your career?
So I've had a plethora of mentors. Commissioner Ramsey, the Godfather. I talked about all the time, whether I'm speaking across the country or not, the individual who brought me into law enforcement, Benny Napoleon, who's no longer with us. He was the chief of police in Detroit, as well as the Wayne County Sheriff. But most recently, I have to say Cassandra Deck Brown. She is the former police chief in Raleigh, North Carolina. She has guided me through my chief years, ever since I've had a chief in my title, when I was the chief in Dallas, and some of the most challenging times, going through COVID, but also through the civil unrest of George Floyd. So she is one that I would say provided a lot of insight, a lot of wisdom. She's one who served in a chief's position for 8 years, and that is not normal. The average tenure of a police chief is 3 to 5 years, so she had a lot to embark upon me, but also my peers. President Bryant, past President Bryant, and I talked a lot during that time. There were Director Davis, he would reach out, he'd send me a message on social media, tell me, keep going and things like that. So I can tell you that there are so many, and I just agree with Chief Bryant, past President Bryant, when they say get a mentor, not get a mentor. Make sure you surround yourself with mentors, and they don't necessarily have to be in law enforcement. That's right. There are individuals. Dr. Keesee is in education, but she has a background in law enforcement. But even if she did not, she would be able to navigate these waters because our future leaders have to be able to think critically. And critical thinking is not one-track thinking. So we have to make sure that we surround ourselves with a plethora of different disciplines so that we can navigate all.
All right, we're coming into the home stretch, but before I let you go on this one, so to the participants or the potential participants that are listening, they're listening to both of you describe the value of mentorship that you've had in your career, the impact that that's had. What does a program like this do? How does this help jumpstart them on their mentorship journey and receiving some of that excellent advice and support?
So you're surrounded with the excellence because all of the individuals that are creating this program, are surrounding this program, are individuals who have navigated these waters. These individuals have a background of different disciplines. They're able to provide you with the skill sets of critical thinking and jumpstart your career so that you can see where we've been, the challenges that we faced. We can also talk about where we are now. Director just served as the director of ATF, a federal agency that had to work hand in hand with local, state, and county law enforcement. What that experience is like and how, as a mid-level manager, you have to pour that into your organization and actually get that message of why these relationships are important and how they impact not only your organization, but your community. So I think this program allows us to be able to give any mid-level manager almost every tool that they need to be successful. And who does not want their agency to be successful? So this is my plug. Noble, UVA, 21 CP, we're calling on chiefs, sheriffs, colonels across the country. Invest in your people. Make sure that they are prepared for the future of law enforcement. Make sure that they can navigate the complexities, ensure that there's legitimacy in your organization, have accountability, and I think to also ensure that they're surrounded by the best in the business. So we're asking you, send your people to our program. We're rooting for you. Thank you.
I feel like I need to bring the panel to a close on that one, but we got a few more questions. Thank you, President Hall. Director Davis, what makes this particular course series different than a traditional training that people might go to?
Right, so my mentors probably started when I was in Oakland PD. The first one that comes to mind was the deputy chief we used to call him the late great Marvin Young, who was a great mentor. And then I'm gonna say Noble in the sense that there's not one. Is we're able to reach into the Noble family and make phone calls. When I was dealing with one issue as a chief, with a possible rogue and corrupt cop, I called Richard Pennington, who had dealt with that in New Orleans. When I was dealing with certain issues, I could make calls and had people that had no agenda other than to help you. And I think that sometimes makes a difference. But in addition to a mentor, we also need honest critics. Right? Now that role is exclusively to my wife. Right? So she's my mentor, but she's also my most honest critic. To basically bring you down when you're too up, and to make sure that you're basically moving forward and don't lose focus of why you agreed to do what you're going to do. And the fact that she was also a police chief and retired means we could have that conversation. So have mentors, plural, and have people that will tell you the truth, like slow down, chill out, you're wrong, and be able to do so because their motive is very clear. I want you to be successful. Now, what makes this program unique, I think, is the key that you said something, it's not just a training program, it's an education and training program. And I think past President Bryant said it best about the need to make sure that we can have that continual education. Because education broadens our perspective beyond law enforcement and lets us see the world globally and understand what impact we have, whether it's looking at our history and otherwise. But let me just add one thing that I know the program will address. You were asking about being successful. And so the key thing I would ask any mentee to start with is, you define success for me. What does success look like for you? And I always ask them, why do you want to be a lieutenant? Why do you want to be a captain? Why do you want to be a chief? If it's simply for the title, then I have to question why you're doing it. So the title is not an ends to the mean, it's a way to accomplish a goal. I want to be a lieutenant because that's the position that I can affect change. I'm seeing things that I think we can do better. I'm seeing things that I think we're doing wrong. I want to be chief because if I'm chief, I can serve my community better, right? So there's got to be a way to first identify, why do you want to do this? So for those lieutenants and captains that are thinking about coming to the program, ask yourself, why you want to be in the program, what is your ultimate goal, and then it will help you identify why this is important. And so I think that's why the training program is really important, because it will test them to understand what they're actually getting involved with.
This is going to be a quick rapid round, and I'm going to ask each of you to give a piece of advice for someone who's up and coming in the ranks. What's one piece of advice that you give them? Now, I'm limiting you to one sentence, so, I don't know how I'll turn off the microphone, but one sentence.
My one piece of advice would be, ask for what you need.
Be transparent, be honest, but most of all, be fair and impartial.
Never forget who you are, where you came from, and make sure you continue to embrace the core values that define you.
Policing is a calling. Ensure that you handle that the way God intended. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God.
Be adaptable to change. Be intentional about service to the people that you lead, the people that you serve, and the community that you serve as well.
Looking ahead, what gives you great optimism about the future of public safety? Chief, sticking with you, and then we're going to go right back down the line.
The optimism I have is for agencies to be as transparent as they have become, and quick to address things that they identify as wrong. And having organizations like this, having an organization like Noble that is putting out so much information to help professionalize the profession, as well as some of our other partnering organizations.
What gives me optimism is this program. This collaboration allows future individuals in public safety to recognize the importance of collaboration, what's needed to address mental health, homelessness, the wellness. We talk about wellness within our police agencies, but the wellness of our communities. It's organizations like the three of ours combined providing information and knowledge that equips our future leaders with compassion and understanding that this is not a job for just law enforcement. Policing a community and public safety requires all hands on deck, and it teaches you how to get access to those hands.
For me, optimism is based on couple things real quick. One is having the honor of leading the current men and women of law enforcement and seeing just the level that and congratulations to the chiefs and the HR experts that have hired such a good crop of a new generation. But the other one, through my partner, being a partner at 21 CP Solutions, we work with agencies all over the country. And to go into agencies and see them at the highest levels of the organization, at the chief, the mid-level that are driving that agenda and operationalizing those policies, and the rank and file, grapple with, accept, and take on challenges. And in some cases, even acknowledge when they can do better, even when it's not in response to a crisis, but simply because they know they can do better. So to see that, to witness that firsthand, to see this generation, and also the crop of police chiefs and executives that are sitting in the chair right now, I think the only place we can go is up. But that should not result in complacency, nor should we be content. And so that means we have to keep pushing. And even the fact that we have a partnership with UVA, University of Virginia, because 10 years ago, that would be a bad word if you're talking about some type of relationship or partnership with academia. And the recognition now that we are a profession, which means we should have a national coherence to a body of standards, like any profession. The late, great Pat Murphy, used to be the commissioner in New York, posed a question I heard him say once: are we a vocation or a profession? And a profession does this: it educates, it trains, it certifies, it credentials, it holds people accountable, it continually strives for the highest standards and hire the best in the field. And that's what I'm watching us do right now. But it's one of those perpetual goals. There's no finish line. Just keep going and going. And I think this partnership is one of those ways we keep doing that.
I'm very optimistic for the following reason. I've worked now for, I want to say, over a dozen men and women who have been presidents, are presidents of Noble. I've had a chance to literally, so over a dozen years, and they all led with integrity. They were committed to their profession, but they also were humble people. And I think, so my enthusiasm is that I've had an amazing kind of catbird seat to see how it's being done from a leadership standpoint. But the second thing I'll say was mentioned earlier, this is, in my opinion, the best trained law enforcement force maybe ever. But it comes with a certain amount of responsibility. And I know we always focus on when something doesn't go right, and it goes viral, and everyone goes, but audience, I would say 99% take their oath seriously, do the best job they can, and do it under really extreme environments and situations, and they deliver. I get it when it doesn't go right, but for the millions and millions of encounters that go on, these men and women do an unbelievable job. But I'll say it again, this is probably the best trained law enforcement force ever, and it's going to get better with this program.
Thank you. The last one always says there's very little left to say, right? But I will tell you what gives me optimism is we have middle managers who are ready to go now. Yep. This program was created because we recognize that there is a need for them to be able to step into a space and to educate and to learn and to also be taught by academicians. I think we often forget that those who are involved in this program wore that hat, were in that seat, and can bring that realness and reality to the experiences that we're trying to do. So what gives me optimism is that we know we have cohorts that are ready to go. And so I think that is going to be the most exciting thing there.
Thank you so much for this conversation. I'm so excited to launch this program, and thanks to everybody.